Hello, and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, switching into my radio voice. Today I have with me Alicia Sandlin, and today's episode is a career episode, which is my favorite type of episodes. So Alicia, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
It's going great. Good to see you, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So it's really interesting. When we started Profiles in Risk 340 episodes ago or something like that, Nick Lamparelli, Carly Burnham, and myself, it used to be just the three of us chatting about insurance. And we wanted to have guests every once in a while, and especially have guests talk about their careers. And then Insurtech really took off, and we found that it was very hard to get carrier people to come on the podcast because they could never get permission from their carriers to come. So basically, only when somebody like retires or is between jobs, we are able to get them on. Right nowadays, in the Insurtech space, it's a lot easier. So Nick ended up taking off and doing like 120 Insurtech founder interviews, and then Carrie Ann Nadeau did a few, and then I've done like the last 200. But my favorite episodes are generally career episodes. So because that's what I wanted to do with the podcast when we first started. So this is one of my favorite type of episodes. So Alicia, you are out in California, San Francisco, right?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So I lived in the Bay for a while, and it is a beautiful. I lived in Berkeley. It's a beautiful area, but it's not an insurance area. Right, like it's not for carriers. There's brokers, there's Insurtechs, but like Fireman's Fund got bought out, and there's just not a lot of carriers out there. So basically, like looking at your LinkedIn, it looks like you did some time at All Risks, and then did a significant amount of time at AIG. So just kind of tell me your story.
Yeah, sure. So unlike a lot of people today where there's opportunity for risk management programs, there were only one or two when I first got into the business. And I got recruited into the business not from insurance. I was doing corporate sales for an airline, and had a bifurcated reporting structure. And the gentleman, one of the gentlemen I reported to, had an insurance background and recruited me into insurance. And honestly, at the time I got recruited into insurance, I imagined a world of knocking on doors with mortality tables. And if they didn't take the mortality, if they didn't want your life insurance, you'd offer them some sort of vacuum. I had just this very terrible view of what insurance is. And the thing that really got me excited about it was, at the time, and now it's a little bit more of technology companies when you're looking at skylines as far as signs. But this person, and who's still a friend and mentor of mine, said to me, he's like, Alicia, if you look at a downtown, it's on the buildings, it's all banks or insurance companies. And that was the tipping point, along with the fact that he also said, whatever your interest is in insurance, you can find that. So if you want to do entertainment, if you want to do directors and officers, if you want to do aviation, if you want to do hospitality, whatever your interest is,
So
it's an insurance.
I have got to say that your mentor, I don't believe you've shared his or her name. I think you said it was a gentleman, but a gentleman and a scholar. That I love that. That is one of the things that I love about insurance. And by the way, that perception of like knocking on doors with mortality tables and calling your friends and family to sell them life insurance, that perception persists to this day. And what I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter what you're into. I call it the aviation insurance paradox, the aviation underwriter paradox. I made a video on YouTube about it. I'll include the link when this goes live. But it's basically that idea that regardless of what you're into, somebody insures it, somebody underwrites it, somebody sells that insurance. Now, that job is probably not an entry-level job. How do we help you get there? So anyway, you're speaking my language, so continue.
Well, so that I got into my first job into insurance was in the wholesale side, and it was working for all risks that you saw, and it was a great learning ground. I was, they said, you can teach anyone insurance, but you can't teach everyone interpersonal skills. So quickly after starting, they had acquired a firm in California. I was still living in Arizona at the time, and this is the other thing about insurance, right? And you know this is it's global, it's regional, it's global, it's everywhere, right? There's not a country in the world where insurance does not come is not a vital part of the ecosystem in the financial world there. But I started going and marketing our program business that we had, as well as what the firm in California could do. And that was really interesting. I was only in insurance for a couple of months. I really didn't know what I was doing. I would go into a retailer's office, talk about the products we had, and then they'd ask me questions. And reflecting back, I tell this to a lot of people just because now I know how ridiculous it was. But at the time I got the question, I wanted to crawl under the table because I had a kind of a large audience in the room, and they asked me if we wrote symbol one auto. And anyone that's in insurance that has any touched auto, that's just the bare bones basic, right? Where it's eh, if you're doing auto insurance, symbol one. But at the time, I had no idea what that was. I just thought, wow. And then looking back, I just sort of laugh at those moments. But those were the moments really early in my career where I had to ask questions and be inquisitive and really just be humble about. I came from a career from the airline business where I understood and I loved it. I was passionate about it, to starting completely fresh into a world of new vocabulary, new terms. I mean, premium, binding, binder, all of those things. I had no idea, but it was a great experience. And I think on the wholesale side, especially, you really get to touch a ton of different products. Same with retail brokers as well, because they have to meet the client's needs. But it's a quick trial by fire, and then to I entered the insurance business at the tail end of a hard market, and I made my switch to AIG after the wholesale side because there were guys that were there that had been there with established books for 15, 20 years. And because of the market conditions having changed, I wasn't going to be able to make my bonus. I knew that. I thought, okay, this is a good time to diversify my experience. And I had transacted business with AIG, and because of their global reputation. So in late 2007, I made the change to AIG. And then I got to live through 2008 at AIG. And that was an incredible time. It was living life on the edge a little bit in terms of information and trying to understand what's happening. And you're at
So
this big powerhouse.
this is really interesting. So let me pause you there for a second. Okay, so basically, so you go to AIG, which is a very, 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 very large, very, very famous, very well-known insurance company for people who are in insurance, right? But like, if your parents are not in insurance, they probably have no idea who AIG is. So you go to AIG, and like your family has no idea, your friends have no idea who that is, and
Yeah.
and then the '09 happens, and all of a sudden AIG is in the news every day in very negative ways. So this must have been a fascinating time to be there.
Yeah, to be at AIG during that time was absolutely incredible. Because there is a lot of, as you experience on news, right? There are a lot of sensational headlines, and people were driving by executive houses, and waiters and at restaurants were taking pictures of credit cards and receipts, and there were security issues. So we were instructed to in some occasions hide our badges or put stickers on the logo on the credit card, and then we went through a rebranding at the company. It was an incredible time to be part of that.
Chartist, right?
Yes, well, at first it was AIU, which is the AIG's international label, and then it went to Chartis. And then everyone that had transacted business, they understood that AIG is an integral part of the global economy, and that it probably wasn't going to go away anytime soon. And I was in Arizona at the time. That's where I'm originally from. And then, so that was 2008. And then midway through 2009, I wanted to grow and expand with the company, and I was open to relocating. So there was an opportunity to move to New York, and people thought I was crazy. They're like, "You're moving to New York with AIG," and I'm like, "Yes, I'm moving to New York in 2009. While this is still going on, I'm not crazy. The company's not going to go anywhere." I'm sure there were some questions on that, but it was an incredible opportunity to get to New York City, be at the heart of what is, one of the biggest centers of insurance in the world, and be able to experience that. And with AIG it was an amazing opportunity to go and expand my career.
So I feel like I missed out in that I never went through AIG. Right, like working in insurance and like being a giant insurance nerd, having never gone through AIG, you feel a little bit left out. It feels like everybody's gone through there now, and they've gotten really amazing experience. Now, my career advice, and this is Tony speaking, this is not Alicia speaking, this is Tony speaking, who has never worked there. What I have heard from many people is that at AIG they pay you well, you learn a lot, you work with really interesting accounts, and they work you to the bone. And then there's downsizings every couple of years. So basically, like, I've heard people say it. This just makes me laugh. Without question, it's such an important company for the insurance world, right? Globally. But I've heard people say that they count their time at AIG in dog years. Um, which really makes me laugh. And I won't ask you like we don't want to badmouth a former employer, and clearly like it was a great experience for you.
I had a great experience there. So even though I'm not there anymore, I ran to an opportunity, but within AIG, I everyone has a different experience. For me, I joined it because I wanted the global experience. I ended up having a global role, and I got to see insurance around the world. I got to do business in Japan and China and Europe and Latin America. And one thing that
That
I was really
experience is so hard to get, right? Like it's the kind of experience that your best shot at getting it is at AIG.
100%. And it was but those are things, I think with any large company, it is what you make of it. You have to be your own advocate. You have to raise your hand. You have to be willing to take a chance. And if someone comes to you for an opportunity that might be outside the box, and I think you'll see from my career, and someone recently I was speaking with called it a journey. And I never really thought about it that way because I don't have a linear career path. I didn't go from underwriter to underwriting manager to product line manager to chief underwriting officer. I've taken opportunities because they've presented themselves to expand my skill set and my knowledge, which is why I haven't had a linear career. For me, everyone has different drivers. I have a ton of intellectual curiosity, which really drives and is a passion for mine. And at AIG, why I go back to there because I was there for so many years. But it was a great experience, right? Going and learning what in Japan, what are issues that are what do they face? What if people face in China around insurance? What does it mean to be a foreign insurer in another country? How do they see you from a jurisdictional standpoint? And one thing that's really common, which I thought was interesting, the big takeaway is the price is always too high no matter where you are in the world. The terms and conditions are always too tight, and there's always competition. So those things are very common, right? And I thought that was, it sounds very basic, but I didn't realize that was a global issue. And it was a little bit refreshing, especially when you're on the front line, when you're an underwriter, right? When you're on the front line of an underwriting deal, it's exhilarating, it's thrilling, but it's also stressful because you have a lot of different stakeholders, both internally and externally, that have different goals, and trying to meet all those goals, it can be a tough position sometimes.
I really love that. The everywhere in the world they will always complain about price, and you just have to get used to it and learn how to deal with it. I think for the listeners that are listening to this, to pick your brain on how to grow their careers, I think it's important to say, your experience at a company, you kind of alluded to this, your experience at any company has a lot more to do with your manager than it does with the company. Whether you love it or hate it, there has a lot more to do with having a great manager and a great team.
Yeah, definitely. I think having managers that can advocate for you, but you have to build that trust with them, right? It's not an automatic, it's not a given. You shouldn't just expect it. You have to build trust. You have to ask for help. You have to be humble. I love, being humble and hungry and also within insurance. This is something I tell everybody. So anyone that's listening that knows me has heard this a million times, but anytime you meet anyone in insurance that claims they're an expert, they're the first ones you should run away from, because even though they may be extremely proficient in what they do, because we're in a constantly changing environment, whether it be from, we might have some legislation that came through that impacts an entire book of business, or you never know what could change something. So you always have to be on your toes, and there's always learning, even if you are extremely proficient at what you do.
Perfect. Perfect. That's fantastic advice. Truly fantastic advice. So it interestingly, so on your LinkedIn, and I don't know if I'm reading this correctly, but on your LinkedIn, it looks like you left AIG for a little bit, and you went to WKFC Underwriting Managers. I don't that maybe that's an AIG company. I don't know.
No, it's not an AIG company. Yeah, I got recruited. I got recruited away. It was an opportunity to get, originally from Arizona. I was living on the East Coast to get closer to family, but also to join a hyper growth MGA that was acquired by Ryan Specialty Group, and also to learn a new part of the business, learn how programs work, how the MGA world works. And I also had the opportunity to learn property underwriting, which is something I had not touched, and that was interesting. And there's also a different distribution base with that company than there was at AIG. And it was a small, going from a large AIG of the world to moving from New York to San Francisco, which is what got me to San Francisco, and working with a small office with a small company that is mighty, and they're doing great things. They have incredible relationships with their wholesale partners and with their carrier partners, and to see that firsthand was an incredible opportunity. I couldn't pass up.
So one thing I just realized. So I have worked I have never worked for either a broker, a wholesaler, or a program. And in my mind, wholesalers and programs, I just realized, I was 2 days old when I realized, like just now, that those are different things. Um, in my mind, they were kind of stored in the same cabinet. So help me understand like the difference between a wholesaler and a program manager.
Yeah, so sometimes some wholesalers have a program to keep things, as insurance is, right? There's a lot of interchangeable terms, but some wholesalers have a program division. But this is where insurance companies give capacity to a program manager to transact business on their behalf. So they're marketing the program, they're distributing the program, they're managing the profitability of the program, and they serve as an additional arm of the insurance company to be able to get out there too. Sometimes it's a particular class of business, sometimes it could be an association offering product to their members. So that's what a program manager does, or managing general agent. They're transacting business on behalf of an insurance company. A wholesaler, they are going out and marketing their broking business. There's a few different aspects to a wholesaler. You have some of the larger risks, some of tough construction, tough products where um, agents and retail brokers don't have access to certain markets and the excess and surplus line space that the wholesalers do. And the wholesalers oftentimes have specialties. So there could be some that specialize in wrap ups. And you're going to want to have someone that's a specialized expert to help guide you through a complex transaction. And that's what wholesalers can provide. They also have binding authority from certain carriers. So when I was at All Risks, Colony, for example, was one of the top binding companies where they would give you, for small sort of SME business, opportunity to write that business in-house, given they give you the parameters based on the class of business and the pricing. And so you're able to issue that quote in near real time, so you don't have to wait on an underwriter or going back. It doesn't have to leave your office. And then sometimes the wholesalers also have, like at All Risk, for example, which is also acquired by Ryan Specialty Group, is they have an incredible programs team run by Chris McGovern that has been there for been in place for about 20 years, and they have everything from security guards to sprinkler contractors. So WKFC, which is also now owned by Ryan Specialty, is run by Dawn D'Onofrio, and she's an amazing insurance woman. She's been won a ton of awards. She's a great mentor and a great leader in the space. But they are custodians of capital from insurance companies, and they have to take that very seriously. And so they underwrite just as if they are an insurance company. I hope that.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that was fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic. So then you go back to AIG. So what brought you back to AIG, and what did you do on your triumphant return?
So I went back to AIG. There was an opportunity to continue within the program space and expand my skill set as a program manager. So I went from working for an MGA program manager, or program administrators are also called, to back to AIG to manage relationships for program administrators and MGAs and manage. So in fact, I went full circle and was working with some programs that All Risks was doing. So it's one of those things they always tell you in insurance. It's a big world, but it's also small. So it's important to really make sure that you are mindful of that. But I went back to run several programs, not the whole program unit, but I had several portfolios under my umbrella, and working with the program administrators, making sure that the underwriting guidelines that we've created for the program are make them have a viable program, but also protect the capital of the company, making sure that they're inching toward profitability, keeping the program administrators abreast of claims trends. So you're working with claims, you're working with actuaries, you're working with the program administrators, and the program administrators really do the heavy lifting. They're the ones out there finding the customers. They're marketing the program. But from a carrier standpoint, you want to make sure that they're following the guidelines, they're adhering to the pricing, you're working with them. If maybe say you're offering property coverage and there's some wind in a tier 1 Texas territory, and their claims are running hot, we're really working closely with claims and actuary to make sure that if from a geographical standpoint, is there something that's running hot where maybe we can slow something down in one area yet keep the program viable, because you want the opportunity for the program administrator to have a solid revenue opportunity from the program as well.
Awesome. You said something that career-wise is very, 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 very important. There are career advice-wise, there are about 2 million people in our industry in the States. It's a big industry. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody. Never burn a bridge. Never burn a bridge. Manager Tools, which is a podcast that I love, Manager Tools and Career Tools. The company's name is Manager Tools, manager-tools.com. One of the two founders of Manager Tools likes to say, never smile to people who you pass on the way up, because you'll pass them again on the way down.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great. I love that, and it's 100% true.
It's 100%. It's so true. It is so very true. So be nice to everybody. Play nice. Play nice in the sandbox. You never know who. And I've my approach is, if you are in insurance, or if you want to be in insurance, you are a valuable connection for me. I don't care if you are Mike LaRocco, CEO at State Auto, who just left after finishing the acquisition where they got bought out by Liberty, or if you are if you are working in one of the digital sweatshops that we call call centers in some of the large carriers, or if you just want to work in insurance, you are an equally valuable connection for me, because you are in insurance, and this is my pond. This is where I live, right? And this is where I work, and this is where I make my living. And I will happily open doors for you as much as I can. Uh, I think that approach makes a lot of sense. Now, my way of doing it is a bit extreme, and people like most people don't have the time to do it the way I do it. But don't be one of those people that is a great networker up and kicks down, or ignores down and ignores sideways and only networks up. Don't be one of those people. It's not good.
I I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think that is something that some people should never forget. Um, everything from even the janitor in your building to the security guard. You never know, right? I mean,
You never know.
everyone's a person. Everyone has a different job. Not one job is better than the next. And
Uh,
I think that's something that's important for people to realize.
Number one, it's the right thing to do, to be nice to everybody. Number two, you never know, right? You never know which security guard has the CEO's ear because he's been there for 25 years, right?
Exactly.
You never know. One that is an absolute no-brainer is gatekeepers, admins, right? What we used to call secretaries, admin assistants. Make like this is a very typical like brand new college, very hungry college grad with limited experience and hasn't had the right advice. Very common way to get in trouble is they mistreat the admin without
Oh,
realizing that the admin has an immense amount of power and
and
influence.
admin, they're the heartbeat of keeping operations going, and I think they also get underrepresented. I think they're critical, right? It's not only as gatekeepers, but they understand the connectivity around, especially if you're in a large, complex organization. They understand the interconnectivity and the priorities that are critical for the company, and definitely important to have strong relationships with everyone. And everyone has, because of the different perspectives, can provide different advice along the way as well.
Absolutely. I always say immediately make friends with HR, with IT, and with the admins. If you want to get it, if you want to be able, if you want to get anything done in the corporate world, immediately make friends with HR, IT, and the admin. Uh,
Good
uh,
advice.
so in total, a whole bunch of years at AIG,
Yep,
uh, and and then in in fall 2021, you go Insurtech, right?
I
So
did.
so
Yep.
so tell me that story. How did that happen? Uh, yeah, tell me that story. That your Insurtech experience.
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting. I think it kind of goes around about how everything's still interconnected. I met the co-founder of TrustLayer at an event that AIG that we put together
Um,
for some of our top tier
you,
clients.
you can use his name if you want
Oh,
to.
John Ford. Yeah.
I like him a lot.
I do too. Yeah, we're still close. So I met John for at an AIG event, and it was a small event for top tier clients and their broker partners. And didn't recognize him, so I walked up to him and said, "Hi, I'm Alicia. Was one of the hosts with my colleagues at the event." And he said, "Oh, I have this little startup. We're validating certificates of insurance and in the construction industry." And at that time, they were thinking about blockchain. That's not the case today, but at the time, and for me personally, at that same time, I had just completed a certificate program with the University of Oxford in blockchain, because I think living in the Bay Area and just the nature of who I am, I really enjoy forward-thinking technology and keeping my finger on the pulse of what's happening in that area, which is why I went and got that certificate in blockchain. And so I said, it was, he had mentioned that, and it was just one of these serendipitous moments because I said for my individual projects, I had just wrote about exactly what he built. And I could not believe I met someone who was building that. And it was just absolutely amazing. So I did that was in late 2018. And and we said, oh, we got to connect. The holidays go by, and then in January of 2019, John reached out, and I ended up doing some consulting for John and also his co-founder Vincenzo, also a great guy. He's the CTO of TrustLayer today, and did some consulting, but because I wanted to be, make sure I'm being compliant with AIG, talked to our compliance officers, and they felt like there was a conflict of interest. So I said, okay, that's fine. So I still remained friends with them, and was watching from a distance on what the company was doing. And then right after the Series A was announced, John and I met. He was in town in San Francisco. And we met, and then one thing led to another, and I ended up making the jump over to TrustLayer. And it was not something. I wasn't running away from an opportunity. I really enjoyed my role at AIG, and my last role as a client director, working with some of their top clients in the Bay Area, which were amazing. A lot of these are top technology providers that we all enjoy their products in our homes every day. But it was an opportunity that I felt like I was running to. And I think that is critical advice that anyone that is listening, that make sure you're not running away from an opportunity, running away from a job, but you're actually running to an opportunity that's going to give you.
Hey, so if you are watching on video, things look a little bit different. The lighting probably changed. My shirt color changed. Alicia teleported to a different place. So the inside story is my internet died as we were recording. I've got Google Fiber. I've got 2 gig a second Google Fiber, and it has died 4 days in a row. What the heck, Google? I'm about to tweet you to get a refund for this month. So we are back. I think we were recording Friday or Thursday. I can't even remember. We're back on Monday. Okay, so we're back like 4 or 5 days later just to finish it out. So if you're listening to the audio version, like I'll probably won't even include this part because you won't notice. But for the video version, I will have some sort of transition. Okay, cool. So thank you for joining me again. So just before we got cut off, I had asked Alicia about the transition to Insurtech, and she had told me how that happened. And she was in the process of saying that the reason she made the move is because she was excited for the opportunity, not because she was running away from anything. And that career-wise, it never makes sense to run away. It always makes sense to go towards something you're excited for. And I, right when my internet died, I was about to strongly agree with that. And I've had this conversation in Chat with Tony chats many times where I've told people, if you're in a really crappy job, there's a strong temptation to just run away to anything, right? And my advice usually is don't, because you can easily jump from the frying pan to the fire, and before in the frying pan you at least had tenure. Now in the fire you don't have tenure, and now if you make another jump it looks bad on your resume. So you go and you won't be successful at a job that you're going to just because you're running away from another job, not because you're excited for the new job.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, running to an opportunity that expands your skill set, might expand your network, helps hone in on a skill that you want to develop, is definitely important. Because if you're just running from a job, and just switching names on the door, that's not gonna, there's no long-term satisfaction there. And I think also it's okay to take some risks along the way, to try something new. And I think we talked about that last week, where some people, a linear career is fine. For me, I think my interest in wanting to continue to expand within the insurance sector has driven me to find roles that are a little bit different than the last role I came from. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I think people sometimes they picture themselves as needing to needing to follow somebody else's path, but it's okay to follow your own path.
Well, and in insurance, how do I put this? In investment banking, in accounting, in consulting, there are careers where there are very defined paths. where like you do this for 2 years and it's either up or out, and then you go to this level and it's either up or out, and then you go to this level. And at some point, maybe you join a client, but it's a very, very well-defined path. And there are advantages to that. Like we can teach you in college what those paths are. That's not the case in insurance. In insurance, all careers are like giant, all successful careers are giant, like squiggly lines, sometimes historically at the same company, but squiggly lines nonetheless. Like I know very few people in our industry who had like a straight growth from like claims to head of claims, or from underwriting assistant to head of underwriting. Like everybody kind of goes like that.
Yep,
And
exactly.
nowadays, more and more in between companies, and not only that, to Insurtech and then back, and then create your own Insurtech or what, right? Like it's even more crazy mix of stuff. So we're recording on August 8th, 2020, 22. And it has been a weird last few weeks in the overall economy. So just on Saturday, so after we recorded the first half, or before we recorded the second half, some economic numbers came out, and basically we have known for about 3 weeks that we are in a mild recession, right? The definition of a recession is GDP decline for 2 quarters in a row. So as of July 1st, we are in a recession, a very mild one. It's been a very, very mild decline in the overall GDP. But this Saturday, we got some economic news that the US economy created 528,000 jobs, and unemployment is going down. And at the same time, we have inflation. So my dad happens to be visiting me. We are both MBAs. Neither of us are economists, but we're both MBAs. He actually has 2 master's degrees, both around the business space. He's an industrial engineer by trade, and we spent a lot of time chatting about this, about how like this current environment makes zero sense, right? And in our space, in insurance and Insurtech, in the last few weeks, we have seen several downsizings in the Insurtech space. The carriers seem to be stable, but then on the Insurtech space, we're also seeing a lot of hiring, right? So it's a really weird world that we're in, and I do have a mild explanation on why unemployment is decreasing instead of increasing during this very mild recession. And my best explanation, again, I'm not an economist, is remote, basically. And I wish that I could find. And if anybody, listeners, if anybody's a nerd and can find this, send it over, because I'd love to see it. Basically, I am guessing that there is a increase in unemployment for blue collar work, but a decrease in unemployment for white collar work. And why? Why would that happen? Because white collar employees in the new world don't have to move to get a new job, right? While blue collar employees do have to move. So even though the economy has declined a little bit, the few people that are getting downsized are simply getting another job without even having to reload. That's my guess. So I don't know how much you want to talk about it, and we can cut this part out. But so you're no longer a trust layer, right?
No, I'm no longer at Trust Layer. So I'm in between opportunities, which is the first time in my life I found myself in this position. It's very unfamiliar, but I understand why. And Trust Layer had to go back to the core of its product as it's continuing to expand. They're still doing great things. I know there was quite a few of us that were impacted, but for the most part, everyone has found some opportunities. And I'm in the final stages with potentially a couple different opportunities as well that I'm weighing
Awesome.
out that are different than anything I've ever done before, but equally exciting. So,
I, I'm
um,
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's within the insurance or insurtech space.
yes, it is
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect,
I
perfect.
can't run too far from the apple tree.
Okay, good,
It's
good.
I love insurance.
And given the massive experience you've had in insurance and now in insurtech, what kind of roles are you interested in? And again, like I will try to get this out as quickly as I can, which probably means this will come out. I could actually get it out this Thursday. We'll talk about it after we're
Okay.
done. But by the time this comes out, you might have already accepted another role. And if that's the case, I will put a note in the show notes. But if you haven't accepted, if you're still in the game, right? If you're still available, what kind of roles should people reach out to you about?
Oh, that's a good question. So I have interesting background where I have technical underwriting experience, portfolio management from an underwriting level, as well as direct client engagement, which also intersects with their broker partners. So ideally, I think where I best positioned is somewhere with a partnerships type of position, but that also has a technical aspect to it, being able to still use the underwriting acumen that I've developed, understanding the surplus. Uh, I shouldn't say surplus, but the supply chain of how capacity providers work and how to talk within that space. I think that is an understanding their drivers and motivations, something that marries those. And if I was had a linear career, my definition would be a little bit more definitive. But now that I've seen the traditional insurance world as well as the Insurtech space, there are a lot more opportunities available than I realized. And I think that was one of the really great benefits of taking a chance and going to the startup. It opened my eyes to different different opportunities within the insurance sector, whether it be from a regulatory perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a partnership perspective, and really getting even a more holistic view of the insurance industry. And I think that's one thing, right? No matter where we go in our careers, it's important to have people within your network that you can call upon, whether they be mentors or you might be their mentor. Some of those, sometimes those relationships flip flop. But I think having a strong network, none of us get to where we are without having the folks, a really great team around us, whether that be friends and family that don't just tell you what you want to hear, but also folks within the career sector that might they might know you even better than you know yourself in terms of your career, because I think we're not aware of how other people see us. So sometimes they could turn us on. A broker friend of mine turned me on to a couple opportunities I didn't even realize were out there. So I'm being a little bit vague on purpose because I don't
I
want to give anything
completely
away. But
understand. Yeah.
yeah, there it's this is still very much a relationship business. And there, I don't think we'll be ever getting away from that. I think the technology and tools that insurtechs like TrustLayer and others are bringing to the table are really going to help solve some gaps that are needed in the insurance space and really make things more efficient for the end buyer, especially now that we're this interesting intersection of the digitally native customer entering being I think the percentage between non-digitally native and digitally native, that's really going to level out here soon.
I agree 100%. Our industry will always be a relationship-based industry, and even if the technology got to a point where a lot of these people were needed, and we're nowhere near that, uh, the people still the right. Even if, let's say, 80% of insurance transactions were handled almost entirely digitally with no human touching them, finding your next opportunity is still best handled by your network. So invest in your network. Invest in your network. Rob Galbraith likes to say that domain expertise never goes out of style. So invest in becoming an insurance expert, CPCU, that kind of thing. And uh, if you're on the technology side, right, invest on being the best you can be on that side. If you're in the analytics side, invest in becoming the best you can be in that side. Domain expertise never goes out of style. And the power of your network over the long term becoming your net worth never goes out of style. So invest in your network. It really pays off over time.
I also think that multi-generational mentoring is really important. And I think there's a thing where you've got folks on the older end of the spectrum often dismissing younger folks and vice versa. And I think there needs to be more, I think that playing field needs to get leveled because there are things that both generations can help each other. I think the tribal knowledge that some of the folks that are the end of their career, that they can share with their younger mentees, it will just be invaluable to them and help them really understand. You don't need to go down memory lane in minute detail, but having the history helps understand where companies are positioned today and why they make certain decisions. And then I think the younger folks, they have a new way of buying things and a new way of looking at things that the older, the people on the tail end of their careers can really benefit from.
I completely and thoroughly agree. It's been a bit of a long episode since we had that pause in the middle. Uh, but it's been wonderful to have you on. I am dying to hear where you land, and dying to see your effect in the industry going forward. Uh, Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Tony, and thanks for having me. And I love the fact that you mentioned just a few minutes ago if there are any nerds out there. Well, you've got a whole crew of nerds that follow insurance nerds. Your blog, your LinkedIn, and your podcast. I think, and your Slack channel, which is how I originally found you. And I think what you're doing for the industry is really great and bringing the community together, both from a traditional and a technology perspective. So, thanks for everything you're doing for the industry too.
Thank you. It's been a blast. And now that I'm a recruiter independently, it's starting to really pay off financially. So it's really it's a really cool position to be in, basically. And
Well, you
I
have a lot of insight.
having such a great time. So thank you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony. Talk to you later. Make sure you're not running away from an opportunity, running away from a job, but you're actually running to an opportunity that's going to give you new skill set.
Oh, I think you've frozen. Okay, so I'm waiting for you to reappear. Waiting for you to reappear. La 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 la. Pum pum. I hope that I remember to edit this part out. Tengo que ponerme una nota para editar este pedazo. Eh, Alicia. Alicia.